All right, so welcome traders. Please bear with me. Thank you very much. I was hoping to do this incredible video outside on the deck with the palm trees in the background to kind of, just share the experience with you. It's just impossible. The Wi-Fi is so thin on the ground, it's just not really working. So I'm here in the business center, which is also close to sort of near the reception. So there's some background noise and I apologize. So let's just have a quick look at what's kind of going on in the world. So as you may or may not know, we've had some potential kind of war tensions that have cropped up. And let's just quickly have a look at that. Okay, so long story short, obviously there was an overnight and especially over the weekend, there was an attack on Israel by Iran, retaliation, and so tensions obviously escalated and there were some concerns about how this was going to impact the market. It seems to, for now, have kind of calmed down. It's been a little bit of a tit for tat, but I think also it would be foolish to assume that since we kind of have some clues that Russia is very much goading Iran into doing this, that we might not see, this might not be the end of it just yet. The point is that I want to go back now to the markets, see how the markets have responded, and just quickly talk about what's up this week. So this coming week, I really want to pay attention to what the banks, central banks are saying, the Feds as well, with regards to inflation, any concerns they have for the UK. I'm going to be paying attention to CPI data, see what the status is for Europe as well. Also curious to see how the tensions potentially impacted crude oil. I don't really think we have an issue anymore. I think so much has changed since Russia invaded Ukraine. This is a subjective opinion. I do think that Europe has looked for more independence. I think the US is also producing the most oil it ever has as well. So I don't really think that crude oil is as much endangered as it potentially would have been. I think post Russia invasion of Ukraine, I think they're looking for more independence. We've got the jobless claims. I want to see sort of what happens there in the existing home sales. I'm kind of waiting for a bubble to burst with property market, and it might take 2 years or it might take years, but I'm kind of keeping an eye on that. Then we've got retail figures coming out of the UK on Friday. So those are already worthwhile paying attention to get a sense of non-US stuff as well as what's going on with the US. Right, so let's go across to the charts and have a look and see what's going on there. Okay, so the very, very first thing is obviously looking at the VIX, and you can see there's a spike here in the VIX. Now, this isn't just to do with the tensions. This is actually to do with reactions to US data that came out last week. But I just want you to notice that we're still at relatively low levels. That doesn't mean that when I say we're at low levels and we're still calm, that doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to climb. What I'm trying to do is just provide some context as to how far we can go and still be within norms. So for now, we've been expecting this for a while, but it's starting to edge up and we'll see how that goes. Let's have a look at that dollar index. So the dollar index actually had an incredibly strong week last week. Now, I don't know if you recall, I was saying initially that there was some confusion between what was going with the dollar. So the Thursday and the Friday gave completely conflicting answers. And then on the Monday, it appeared as though we were going to get a weaker dollar, and I was just kind of expressing some concerns about that. And then subsequently, we've had a really, really strong push by that dollar index. And so we've had a much stronger dollar this week. And actually, that now seems to have broken us outside of this range, which means actually I think it's reasonable to expect this week that we could see this continue to climb, head over 1.6 and potentially up to these old highs of 106.50. So I'm expecting a stronger dollar this week. That actually means that when we look at euro dollar, my expectation, and it makes sense to see it continue to head down to the bottom of this range. So for you guys, for me, it is only 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm behind the UK. So for you guys, it is past 10 p.m. on a Sunday night. I wanted to wait until the market opened to see how the tensions impacted the markets, but they don't seem to have done any harm whatsoever. The markets have pretty much not gapped that much. We'll see, but that isn't the end of the story. We still have to see how the rest of the week unfolds. Okay, but it does also mean that the market handled it relatively well. So I do think there's a lot of pressure now. We're expecting to see euro dollar head down to 1.05. If we go have a look at sterling, I expect this as well. There's no reason why this can't continue down to the next level of support, which is at 1.23. What I'd like to see though first is I'd like to see if we get any kind of a retracement to the upside and then a continuation down, or are we simply just going to go straight down from where we are here? And all of that has, that just really depends on kind of what is triggering this, and that will only become predominantly clearer when, say, 3 or 4 months from now, or even maybe only 2 months, we look back and then we can clearly say that was the thing that was driving it the most. So one of the things I'm looking here, for example, is looking at Aussie dollar, see if we come back up, test resistance, and then continue down. But you can see the overall temperament of this sentiment as well. Excuse the background noise. The sentiment here, bearish engulfing candles, looking very, very bearish there, Kiwi dollar as well. So all of this, what I like about this is a good thing, ladies and gentlemen, is we now appear to have got some direction out of this. I think it's reasonable to assume we're going to have a strong dollar for a while and continue to see these trends climb. If you look here, for example, on dollar yen has broken through that resistance. It's potentially going to come back and retest that for support before continuing higher. But so far, we can see that trend very much pushing higher there with dollar yen, which I can't imagine is really going to make the Bank of Japan very happy. I know that ultimately they do want to reverse that. So what's going to be interesting is over the next couple of months, are we going to see commentary with regards to intervention, or are we going to see harsher potential changes? We're going to see rate hikes for Bank of Japan. I think it's going to be an interesting year, both good and bad, obviously, no doubt. So here we have dollar Swissy also pushing a little bit higher. Again, dollar Swissy could really do with a bit of a retracement, but we're going to see if it's going to do that. That stronger dollar, now that the dollar has finally kind of picked a direction, we could see some insane moves. And also you can see how close we are to some of these next resistance levels for both the euro and for everything else. We could simply see this week, over the next 24 hours, we could just see it continue. I'd really like to see it retrace a little bit here before continuing up, but it all depends on how strong all these moves are. Right, let's move on to gold. So gold here, this is significant. Finally, gold has had some reaction at 2,400. Very strong reaction there. It is overextended. We do need to see a retracement. Will that kick off this week? That is a possibility. What is the kind of shadow retracement we could get down here towards the sort of 2.2, 2.3 area? This would be a very shallow retracement. If we did get a stronger retracement, I would expect it to potentially come back down towards that 2.2 area. So a little bit further down in towards these highs here, tapping, just touching the top of that particular candle. So then we have a look at silver, for example. Silver should also have bumped its head up here. You can see very strong reaction there, closing right near the lows. So again, this would make a great retracement down towards 26. That would be fantastic. A little bit further even down here towards 24, but 26 would be a beautiful retracement. If we don't, we might see a very shallow retracement and another attempt, and then maybe a double top and then a stronger reaction. We are overdue for those correction, guys. We spoke about this last week. Let's have a quick look at natural gas. Not that I'm expecting anything here. Really, you could just see it's not really going anywhere. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Isn't going any lower, still doesn't look very bullish, but nothing's changing. Then when we have a look here, for example, at light crude, there's no doubt that we are bumping our heads up. There's some strong resistance in this area. I'm going to call it $86.66, and we're going to see if we have a bit of a retracement here, just down towards the $81 mark, maybe $80 before it continues to the upside. Most importantly, please, so far, I don't see any gapping on this. I mean, the market's open, but I'm not really sure. I'm not seeing much gapping there. Let's have a look at West Texas. West Texas also showing a lot of exhaustion in this area. Where should it retrace to? Well, I think it would be feasible for it to come back down into that $80 mark, potentially. The shallowest area would be around about this area over here, back in towards these highs. Nice little 82.45. Very nice deep retracement on that one would make a lot of sense. Let's have a look at the global indices. All right, so global indices, we spoke about this last week. We were looking for that correction. We need it. We need that strong momentum break. This is beautiful. This is everything that you want as a trader. It's everything you want as an investor. This is the best kind of thing because it's on sale now. So what are we looking for? Ideally, we're looking for a move down to these recent lows here, maybe even further, because if we get it, obviously it allows us to expect a bigger leg up after that. So we're looking for potential support in this area 37 this week, or possibly down towards that 36 level, next level of support. But that is great, guys. We've been looking for this and waiting for it for a while. The S&P here lagging a little bit. This could come down a little bit further. Shallower retracement would put it in at about that 5,000 level. A deeper retracement should bring it back down towards, wow, even over here, I would say putting it down in towards 4,800, maybe even as far as 4,800. That's what I'd be looking to see. Makes it very tricky. It's a patience game. For investors, this is a buying opportunity. For traders, it is a high-risk shorting opportunity, okay? And again, I'm waiting for this level on the NASDAQ to break, and then I'd be looking for a move down to 17,261. We'll see if that's going to happen. But again, all these things are very good things. They fill the headlines with all kinds of drama, but this is what you want from an investing perspective. Looking here at the Russell 2000, trying to break out of its range, it's back in its range. Overall, I'd be very impressed if it just stays above that 50-period moving average and above these lows here. So if it finds support here, this might turn out to be a very quick correction before it does another leg up, and then we might still have another correction later on in the year. Okay, the political uncertainty, ladies and gentlemen, is just getting started. It's hard to explain, but there are a lot of very nefarious forces out there, and here I'm referring to anti-democratic forces, nothing mysterious, certain nations that are competing with democracies, and so it's kind of it's a prime thing with a massive election coming up. and a lot of kind of kind of uncertainty, and even in democratic states, even for example within the UK, and so that uncertainty is something that non-democratic parties would look to take advantage of. So expect things to get weirder and more confusing between now and kind of December. Expect that. But that doesn't mean that the markets aren't going to continue to climb. The FTSE here is battling with these highs. But overall, I've got to say it looks relatively strong at this time. And even if it did have a correction, I wouldn't expect a very big one from that one. Let's look at DAX. DAX is beautiful. When you look at this from a weekly perspective, this is a beautiful quality chart. It's behaving in a very nice, smooth, orderly fashion. Where would I expect it to come down to? At most, really, I think back in towards these highs, yeah, that would be ridiculous. 16,400 would be very big. I wouldn't expect that. I think it's probably going to be closer to 17,300, somewhere around the 20 period on that weekly. But it looks really good. ASX out of Australia, stumbling a little bit here. It's actually starting to lose momentum. This is something that's you don't see it in the beginning with if you're a newer trader / price action student of price action. But this is starting to lose momentum. It's starting to look more and more bearish. And actually here a pull down towards these old highs to test that level of resistance or support would be perfect. Nikkei as well, very much due for a correction. I would love to see it come back down and test this, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to see a pullback into 36,000, and then at most, and then a bit of a correction. Okay, we might not do it deep. I'm trying to kind of highlight those kind of longer distance moves. Let's have a quick look, a run through equities, guys. Okay, so Apple, this is beautiful. So we were waiting for this. I think Apple is providing, and let's talk about the disclaimer here. To me, this is a buying opportunity, and I want to talk you through it. But again, there's no guarantees in life. But for me, this is something I observe. This is how I would do it. This is a bullish engulfing candle. It's massively engulfing. It's off a level of support. It's actually a double bottom within a general uptrend. I very much like the look of this. To me, this is a very strong bullish signal. And I would give it an 8 out of 10 in terms of how strong it is. It's off a really nice historical level of support. I think it looks great. I want to get the weekly back up above the 50, but this could turn out to be the lows. All right, this could turn out to be the lows. We might see that Apple's within a range. So this could turn out to be the lows, then it goes back up to the top, then it comes back down, and so on and so forth. But for now, I've got to tell you guys, this to me is a very strong base signal. We might get another one and then a move up, but this is it. So you don't get this if it's weak. So if you're an Apple bear, I'm going to be the bearer of bad news here. You are. This is going to start pushing higher. Okay, so that looks really good. I really like that one there. Amazon, let's go and move across to this. Amazon needs to take a bit of a breather, but otherwise it's really nice and healthy. Really, this can do a bit of a pullback down here. Looks really good. It is slowing down a bit, but no real bearishness right now. AT&T, I want to go through this. AT&T, there we go, having a bit of a correction. I think the most reasonable place for AT&T, it's at lower highs, for it to come back down into this area around that $15.50 bounce, find support potentially off these highs and off the top of the 50-period moving average. Potentially, before then turning around. Let's see how that goes. We'll wait and see if that's going to be the case. ARC. So ARC, obviously, and this, to some degree, this is a rising tide or a sinking tide or whatever is going to sink all the boats. In this case, it's brought it back into the range. So it's still stuck within that range. I will have to just keep an eye on that and see what happens. So that here we're starting to see some exhaustion on ASML. Not a bad thing. Look at the exhaustion showing up in these candles here. I think a retracement down towards the kind of 874, even 800 would be amazing here. Good buying opportunity. Looks good. Glencore. Interesting, isn't it? Glencore's just pushing on through, looks really good. So Glencore from this perspective, I think is going to continue to climb. That looks really good. Tesco, we're going to see if you're going to test support here. So that's really what we're looking for here. You can see it was a very volatile week last week for it. It is struggling a bit. We want to see if it can find some support in this area and then continue to push higher. That one's a little bit giving some mixed results. Amex. Amex is starting a beautiful retracement. Again, down towards 200 would be amazing. If that's going to be the case, would be a good buy opportunity. Let's look at Berkshire Hathaway. Beautiful double top, starting to lower down now. Again, Berkshire Hathaway back into these highs, back down towards that 375 area. Amazing. Coca-Cola. So, and I'm going to be here with you, or at least that's my plan. My intention is to be here to see when we can find these bottoms together and have a look at it. I don't want to sound like Jim Cramer or anything like that. I am actually a serious investor, and I want to, our goal here is to make money safely. Back down towards that 56 area, I think, for Coca-Cola, so it's going to take a bit of a hit. I don't think it looks terrible. I think it's just range bound, and so therefore it's kind of just stuck in that. Okay, crude oil, remember BP and crude oil, bumping its head up there right now. We've got ExxonMobil as well, just going through these. They are pushing higher, but they're going to be very much in flux with crude oil. And so really, you already know, if you just analyze crude oil, you know what's going to happen with these guys. Okay, General Motors. General Motors here. Let's have a quick look. Bit of a retracement, and I think again back down into these old highs makes a lot of sense. So for General Motors to come back down to 41, 35 in that area, we're going to see, could it go further? Yeah, but 39.40, I suspect that's the sweet spot. So that'll be the sweet spot for a buy opportunity if it does get down there. I love these types of things, guys, because this is where the armchair investors, excuse my language, but like crap themselves. They just like, oh no, the whole world's coming to an end. And obviously combine that with all the news you have, you actually think that that might be the case. But from the market's perspective, ladies and gentlemen, this is primo harvesting time. Okay, so all right, so let's just see. That is a really strong reaction, but it's beautiful. JP Morgan has had a really good run, and therefore strong reaction actually makes sense. It actually makes sense. It's had a solid run. It's been bulletproof. It's gapped down. Really what I'm looking for now is going to be a move down towards the 164, 160 area, back down towards these lows at most. If not that, even down in towards 177, which means over the next week or 2 weeks, we could get a nice green candle there, and that could be a potential pickup opportunity there. Invesco QQQ, we're waiting on a move like that. Nothing yet. We're waiting on a correction. Where's it going to come down to? Almost certainly this area here, 400. Let me just place this as a possible thing, kind of somewhere into about that area. It looks really sweet. That looks like a sweet spot. Okay, we've got Adidas. Beautiful. Just ladies and gentlemen, just absolutely beautiful specimens here. You can see the reaction off the 50-period moving average. So this area is a toughie for it. It's ping-ponging between the moving averages. So I expect it to find some support here. We'll see how that goes. It was a double top. We will see. It's not done yet. So some of these are just starting their corrections, and others are looking okay. And we'll see what happens here. For example, this is Meta. Meta's starting to show signs of fraying here, and a correction down into this area. I stand by it. Still the same thing. I'm looking for a correction into this area. If we're going to get that, Morgan Stanley, beautiful, big strong reaction, very similar to JP Morgan, very strong, but still within this range. Okay, that was a really nice, strong, again, strong support level. So anywhere down in this area, I still expect it to turn around, might even come back in to $80 and then find support. So halfway through that and find support. Let's have a look at NVIDIA, because NVIDIA, of course, is one of the ones we really needed to turn around. This is an interesting one. So have a look at this. We've got a bit of a very messy head and shoulders here. Then you can see this attempt. This is where the buyers have come in. So notice there are points where buyers come in as soon as possible. They cannot wait. They cannot wait. They've got to come in as quickly as possible. Sometimes there's not enough buyers to turn things around. And so actually what happens is it'll try, fail, and we'll get a deeper correction. So I think we could turn around here. We could. But I think there's a really good chance we could see a correction down to 730. We could still see a correction down to 730. So let's just see what happens with that. I still want to see if this head and shoulders very messy or can still unfold. And if it does, that puts us down at that 730 mark. Anyway, so let's see how that goes. Netflix. Starting to stumble a little bit where it is here. This needs a correction down to 500. So we'll see what's going to happen with that. PayPal. PayPal's most likely actually not looking so bad. It's still in this area, going to stay within that range. Maybe it's still above that 50-period moving average. This is a great area for it to find support. So let's just mark that and see if we get some support in this area. But this is hinting at a very small correction, a short correction, like 2-3 weeks, and then we're back up. And that's not necessarily the case. I'm saying these charts are hinting at small corrections. They're showing me that they're not that far away from really good support levels. They're not that overbought. So we could potentially just have a very small correction for 2-3 weeks, and then the markets could attempt to resume. So let's see how that goes. Spotify, again, Spotify just had this really good breakout. Spotify doesn't really want to come back, potentially down to 280 at most. Otherwise, it could hold in this area. So again, Spotify's already it's just kind of taken off. Now, Spider. Okay, Spider coming down to these levels. Again, I'm going to keep this where it is, more or less. That's where I expect to see it potentially turn around and find support. Let's see if that's going to be the case. FedEx, remember how we spoke, well, how I spoke last week about the two types of ways this could unfold. We get a small correction now, then it goes up, and then we get another correction later in the year, which ends with September, October is terrible because that's usually a bad month, and then we get the end of year stuff with finishing off with the cherry on top with the elections. The other way I said was we start this correction now and it stays kind of iffy and bearish until September and then turns around. So far it's looking like this is going to be the first one where we're going to get a correction now and then a correction later on the year again as well. FedEx, fine. It's in this area. It looks like a really good place. If this level doesn't hold, then I would expect this area to hold. So no, at this time I'm not really expecting a very, very strong correction. Okay, Next up, Tesla's range bound at the moment, by the way, so that's kind of why it's ping-ponging around here. That was a very strong, this level here, it's actually a specific level of something like 160.25 or something. There are some really strong buyers coming in at this level. This is being propped up. This is definitely being propped up. The levels are very precise, the reactions are very strong. And so it's definitely being propped up for now. But overall, I still think the trend is down for now. What would change my mind? What would change my mind is probably a very strong move up to about here, up to that 200 mark. That would be like, okay, this might be changing. So it wouldn't have to be a lot. It would just have to be a very strong one. But the momentum is still to the downside, and the pressure is still to the downside. And very quickly, I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize if you felt I ranted last week. I apologize. I just really am not. I'm struggling to see the value in this business as something that's really hyped. If it wasn't being hyped so much, I wouldn't care. We were just like, there's lots of businesses out there that no one hypes, and you kind of, but this one is being hyped as the next best thing, and I'm not seeing the value. So I'm going to move on. I don't want to. It was just, I'm looking for the answers. Conceptually, I'm a fan of these things. I want them to work. I want us to produce products that make everyone's lives better, and I'm just kind of not seeing it. So a bit of a correction down here towards these highs would be amazing. Down towards 436 would be incredible. It would be very structured, and we'll see how that goes. We've got Walt Disney. Again, Walt Disney's correction, I think Walt Disney is solid. The furthest I would expect it to go down to is back down to 105. This is really good, and I expect it to, for the most part, to hold. So that would be at 100 into this area at most. Let's just kind of mark that and just see how that ultimately plays out. Again, over the next 2-3 weeks, we could see that kind of happen. Quick look at bonds. I actually wanted to look at DJT as well. So we'll just have another look at that. That continues to slide. So now, in other words, let's stop and just pay attention to this for 1 second. We are seeing bonds fall. Let's have a look at Eurobond as well. We're seeing Eurobond starting to find a bit of a base here. Okay, so remember that I still kind of more bullish on Eurobond. US bonds, not so much. It's definitely now, there's no doubt, it is pushing and piercing through this downward sloping trend line. I'm even going to, I'll update it again, but it is definitely starting to push through that and pierce through that. So I think Eurobonds is starting to climb. And so that's an interesting thing. I think you want to pay attention to that as well. The bond market's starting to show a bit of life. Let's have a quick look at DJT before we go on and finish off with cryptos. DJT, let's go through and see what we get on that one. So Trump Media Technology, just see how this is going. So just this one was, we don't need that, so let's get rid of that. You can see it finding some support at this level. Just did break below it, did actually go down to the 29 something mark and then closed back up above it. But that's actually a very serious violation of that level. And I think this week, if we see a continuation down below this level, then I think it's reasonable to expect that it's going to start to head back down towards these kind of levels over here as well. The only reason I mention this is because the investors that bought over here are potentially going to create a class action lawsuit. So what actually happens is you get a class action lawsuit, which is almost certainly going to win. And the reason for that is because this thing has been hyped as absolutely perfect. Even now, it's still being hyped by the larger shareholder is absolutely amazing, and liquid cash and all these kinds of things, which actually is illegal and it goes against SEC rules. So what's going to happen is there'll be a class action lawsuit, which means that they will actually potentially likely win to get their money back, which actually means that other shareholders who hold shareholders here would actually lose money and ultimately potentially come out owing millions, hundreds of millions, or potentially billions. So very interesting to kind of see how this is all going to unfold. It's just a very interesting, I think this is going to be a textbook in financial schools and potentially in schools, just in terms of for these various different reasons. Okay, let's have a look at cryptos. Crypto's also going through a little bit of a correction here. Remember, I spoke sort of about this area. All we can see here is it's had a really good run with the other tech stocks. They're all having these corrections. It's not an accident that we're seeing corrections here. While we're also seeing stocks have a correction, you have to think of cryptos as tech stocks. You have to, because they are in their own way are tech stocks. You have to think of them as that. They're you know what it is? They're like the love child of the currency markets and tech stocks. That's kind of what they are. And therefore, they are impacted by both potentially. So here we can see just back down into this area, Ethereum possibly having a deeper correction down to 2.3. We'll see if that's going to be the case. We've got Solana. Will potentially come back down. Down towards 102. Cardano staying low. I don't expect this to go very low this time. I expect it to kind of stay where it is. And then Binance, let's go there. And then Binance will have potentially a bit of a correction here. For the most part, they've had a really good run. And I think at this time, I see no reason why the overall trend shouldn't continue to the upside in 2024. I still feel that is the case. I see these as corrections within the larger trend at this time. Cryptos do not behave exactly like other markets, precisely like that. We have bigger corrections. but at the same time, they do seem to, when we have a really good run, they also seem to have a good run. So what I'm going to do is, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, I apologize if the background noise was quite bad. I hope you can hear me this week. I am back at my desk on Tuesday, and then, of course, I'm away again at the end of the month, and I'm trying to continue to deliver the analysis for you. I want to wish you a wonderful week. Let's just see how things go. So exercise some caution, reducing positions in the market, making sure stop losses stay where they are, so on and so forth. And staying calm with regards to that. I think with the equity markets, this is a good thing. If we get a nice correction, this could potentially being a buying opportunity for those blue chip stocks that you've obviously got financial advice on and looking to increase in your portfolio. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I want to wish you a wonderful week. Thank you very much. Always appreciate it.